Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spurs from the Stands. And today we are previewing Burnley versus Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. And we have a lot to get through today. We're going to talk about injuries. We're going to talk about tactics. We're going to talk about the predicted lineup and a prediction for the game. So please do share your comments, share this video, like, subscribe, all of that jazz. I'd love to hear. We've got a few more options this weekend. So I'd love to hear, what is your prediction? Who do you think is going to start? How do you think this game's going to play out, given all of the noise and what's been going on? So let's jump right in, talking about the injuries. So we know the long-term injuries are James Maddison, who is out with a knee injury, Bentancur, who is out with a thigh injury. We've got Kudus out. Ben Davies is going for an operation, or he's already had it, so hope that goes well for him. Bergvall, it sounds like that, unfortunately, is going to be a long-term injury, and I feel so sorry for him because he can't get a run together, having concussion and then knocks and then this. It's just a constant for him, and given last season and the season before as well, since he's joined us, the guy can't seem to catch a break, and that's also not helpful for the overall squad dynamics. So very, very unlucky for Bergvall, because to me, Bergvall is probably our best player. Every time we play, he helps lift the team. He increases the tempo of play, and he is a huge, huge loss for us. And we have to factor that in the back of our minds as we go through this. We obviously know that Richarlison is out for probably another, I'm even going to say 8 weeks, because our medical team will probably say 6 weeks, and then he'll probably get injured and go out again. Paulinho is a 50-50. We know he's in doubt, and we haven't had any updates as of yet how he's progressing. And obviously we know that Kulusevski is out as well. So yeah, lots of injuries, as we already know. We do have the good news. The good news, there's always good news as well, balance things out, is back in this potential squad lineup this weekend. Compared to the midweek game, we have Gallagher, Dragusin, Bissouma, Tell, Van de Ven, and Sarr, who will all be back and available for this game. So that is another 6 players that we could really do with to help the squad to benefit from that squad rotation. Whether we think they're going to be the best combinations on the pitch, we're going to dive into that, and I'm not sure, in all honesty, of how this looks. But yeah, the thing I wanted to mention before we dive into sort of tactics and lineup stuff is, on the game that was last weekend against West Ham, we all booed. I say we. I didn't boo, but people in the stadium booed Tell going off at 62 minutes. Now, we know that he has been building Solanke up in terms of his minutes. And when Tell came off, I think a lot of people were thinking this is not the right substitution. However, in retrospect and with hindsight, I'm now looking at this from a different perspective, because we played the Dortmund game and we know Solanke started the Dortmund game. So our front 3 for the West Ham game was Odegaard, Simmons and Tell, and up front we had Mawani. Now, Solanke wasn't fit enough to start that game. Tell goes off, crowd goes mad. Now, one thing we know for sure is that Frank plans his substitutions, because we heard midweek that Byfield came on and Porro went into midfield, and that was something that was planned for. So my thinking now, based on how that Dortmund game played out, was not that he dropped Tell because he wasn't capable, but I think he dropped Tell to test and see whether Mawani, Simmons and Odegaard as a front 3 with Solanke up top was going to work. And it didn't work, which led to him dropping Mawani in the game and favouring Spence, because none of us ever would have predicted Spence starting on that left wing. We all thought in our back of our minds it was going to be Mawani. And I think the fact that he dropped Mawani was down to those sort of 10-minute play that they had together. It was more than that. It was more like 30 minutes, seeing them all together. And then obviously he took off Odegaard and put on Bergvall. So I think he knew that he needed rotation for Odegaard, but I think he wanted to just see how that played out in a match day scenario. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a valid take? Let me know in the comments. So based on that, For our lineup for the Burnley game, I think we obviously know that Vicario is going to be in goal. He had a clean sheet last game, so hopefully he can do the same again. We've got Porro, who I think Porro starts again. We've got Romero, Van der Ven, and now left back is the one that is going to be the one that's up for debate, because is Udogie fit enough to start 2 games back to back? Spence also started the last game, and obviously now we know that Sousa is in the squad, and because he has his work permit, maybe he's even trained with the squad over the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure how that works, but maybe my thinking is that I think he's going to give Sousa a bit of a run out, even if it's 10 minutes. I've got a feeling that we are going to see him at some point in this game. And the reason why I think that is what tends to happen is when you get a new signing, especially someone who's quite young, who's come into the league for the first time, I'm wondering if Frank is going to want to get a look at him in a competitive match day situation or scenario to make the decision whether he stays around or whether he goes out on loan. I might be wrong on that. They might have already made a decision, but from a fan's point of view, we haven't seen him play. So we don't know. So I think it's a good opportunity to get him some minutes. Do I think Spencer or Udogie is going to start? This is a really tricky one because we also have the game next Wednesday, which we need to win to qualify in that top 8. So I'm going to say Spence. Whether this is the best decision, I don't think so. However, I just think because Udogie has been so injury prone, I really hope that he's going to protect him. And I really hope that that means that Udogie is going to get, some time to start the next game. And that gives him a bit of a break. That also allows to give Porro a bit of a break, because then you could potentially make a sub late on in the game and have Sousa at the back left and switch Spence to the right back and not play him next game. We know that Porro is our fittest player and he tends to play back-to-back games consistently. Now, as much as Porro is our fittest player, our biggest downfall is that we make these stupid, sloppy mistakes. We are our own worst enemy sometimes. We are our own worst enemy. Look, we might not always start on the front foot. We might not always play aggressive attacking football, but in the games that we concede goals and even sloppy mistakes like the West Ham game, you do see players drop out for moments of the game. And that is something we need to knock on the head. We need to get that out of our game because it is costing us so much. It is costing us so much. And yeah, the players need to switch on. So if that means that Porro gets a bit of a break towards the end of this game, fair enough. When we saw, which game was it? Porro went off and Spence came on as the right back. And I don't think he did that well. And did we throw the game away? But yeah, that's what I'm going with. Porro, Romero, Van der Ven and Spence as our back 4. Then our midfield is pretty much open up to conversation because we have, back in the squad, we have Gallagher, and we also have Bissouma available, and we have Sarr, who's also, did I say Sarr already? Yeah, Sarr, Bissouma, and Gallagher, as well as Gray and Simmons. So there we have 5 players to choose from. Now, Sarr started against Burnley at the very beginning of the season. That first game of the season, Sarr started and he had an excellent game that first game. The problem with Sarr is he's not consistent. He is not consistent enough and he hasn't been playing. So whether he's match fit, I'm not sure. Now, Gray looked very leggy at the end of that game, and we need Gray. Gray like Bergvall. Those two, they're like our best players. I'm pretty sure if both of those players were fit consistently, Frank would be playing them, and then we would have some stability in midfield. However, unfortunately, that's not the case. We keep going through this injury cycle that never seems to be ending, and so I'm wondering if in this game, Gray actually comes on later as a sub and maybe we start Sarr. And you know what? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think Gallagher is definitely going to be the 8 in this game, unless Paulinia comes back in. But I think because he's a doubt, because he's had this knock, maybe he's on the bench, and I think that would be the best option. We know that our medical team are yes men, and they, even though there are injuries, they just go, yeah, sure, no problem, you can come on. And then we see a picture of Xavi's ankle and we're like, what the hell is going on? It was so painful watching Bergvall last game. Oh my God, it was so painful watching him just run around, chewing his shirt, putting it over his head. Like, you could see he was in so much pain. And so our medical team need to grow a spine and stop saying yes to bringing back in players when you clearly can see they're injured, because it is damaging the squad and it's not helpful for the team that's on the pitch when that is happening. You know, we the same thing happened with Ben Davis. Ben Davis goes down, we concede a goal, and then he ends up coming off with a broken leg. So it's just, you couldn't write this stuff. I mean, look, the story keeps playing out the same, but at some point we need to switch tactics to ensure that we can see a game out. We need momentum. We need a back-to-back win. And this is a 6-pointer game for Spurs. So we need to perhaps make some adjustments, is what I'm saying. So Gallagher, he definitely starts. I think I'm going to go with Sarr. I'm going to go with Sarr. Oh. Gallagher starts over Basuma. Sarr starts over Gray. And unfortunately, I think you have to play Simmons again. I don't think we have another choice. I think you have to start Simmons. I don't know if I would play Simmons the entire game, but in that position, I don't think we really have anyone else. I don't think we really have anyone else that can play that 10. You've got Odebear, but again, Odebear and Simmons have just played 2 games back to back, both of them in a week. This is the 3rd game in a week. So to have 2 players that you haven't rotated at all. Odebear went off in the West Ham game at 90 minutes. He had an outstanding game, so he definitely starts this game. So yeah, I'm going to go with a midfield of Gallagher, Sarr and Simmons. I rate Gray over Sarr. And so if I see Sarr in this lineup, I won't be annoyed, because the way that I'm looking at it is, okay, well, we've got Frankfurt on Wednesday, so I would rather rest Gray, try and get the win this weekend, and then push to get that win next weekend. And obviously we know that's a travel day as well, so there's going to be a lot going on in a very short space of time. It's a quick turnover for these 3 games. So yeah, I'm going with Sarr. I think our right wing, I don't even think we know, is going to be Odebear, and on the left, Moani's going to get dropped and Tell is going to get his start. The question is going to be, is Solanke fit enough to start another game? Is he fit enough to start 2 games? What we saw was he played 7 minutes, 28 minutes, 70 minutes. Does that mean he's now fit enough to play the full 90? As long as there's been no injuries in training, as long as he hasn't had any more niggles in that ankle, I put him as the starting lineup. So I think Solanke goes into the starting lineup, all being well that he is fit and readily available. And I think Moani for this gets dropped from the bench. Just my thoughts, just my opinion. We spoke about the transfers, and I think it's going to be very telling if we buy a left winger whether Moani is going to stick around. And I also think when we're looking at these transfers, we also need a player who can play in multiple positions. Maybe someone who can play left wing and the 10. Maybe someone who can play left wing and up top. And that is going to help with rotation, and it's going to help with the fitness of the squad overall. So that's just my thoughts. So starting lineup, we've got Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Spence, Gallagher, Sarr, Simmons, Odebear, Tell on the wings, and Solanke up top, which will leave us a bench with Moani, Paulinia, if he's fit, Dragusin. I think Basuma's going to make the bench. Danso will make the bench. Kinski will obviously make the bench. So we are going to be a little bit thin on the ground in terms of rotation, even though we've got all these players coming back in because of the midfield losses. I think there's going to be some rotation there. So yeah, it's looking up. Now, to talk about tactics, predictions, all of that jazz, I don't know how I'm feeling about this one, to be completely honest, because we've been going through this cycle for so long now. I pointed out in that very lengthy, rambly video whether our form is like the biggest issue, and about the fact that we haven't actually won 3 games in a row since like since the beginning of the season 2023. So it's a very long time that we haven't actually managed to get a run of games together, and even winning back-to-back games in the Prem whilst having a game midweek. So this is going to be very telling. This could either be a turning point for the team, or it could be more signs that we need more squad depth and it's just not working. And I think that's why a lot of people are thinking, is this going to be Frank's telltale game? And is this going to be his D-Day? Look, we don't want to be short-sighted. We don't want to be thinking about sacking the manager whilst you're playing a game of football. At the same time, I mean, we've seen managers been sacked from Spurs at half-time before, so that's not completely out the question. However, I think we need to be realistic. We need to be realistic about the state of play, our recent form. The last time we won a Premier League game with a following midweek game where we won both, that was back in early December. So it has been a month since that happened. And we know that coming into this game, we have drawn 2 games and lost our last 3. So in the Prem, obviously we won the last game, so maybe that gives us a bit of momentum. But in terms of the Prem, our recent form has not been good at all. And obviously when we compare that with Burnley, they come off the back of 2 losses to Newcastle and Brighton. They drew against Man United, and that was the game before Amarim got sacked. They had a fantastic win in the Cup, so they beat Millwall 5-1. That's going to give them a bit of a bounce and a bit of confidence. And then they drew against Liverpool. So they're at home. They're going to be seeing this game as an opportunity to pick up points and push up the table. So in terms of the table, they are sitting, let's just double check this. Yeah, they're sitting 19th on 14 points. So if they were to win this game, that would actually bring them up level with West Ham, if West Ham were to lose this weekend, which would only push them 5 points behind Forest. So there is a lot to play for them. And we are 13 points ahead of them in the table. We currently sit 14th, thanks to Bournemouth, who scored a late goal. No, Brighton scored the late goal, which meant that we stayed 14th, because if Bournemouth would have won that game, we would have dropped 15th without having played a game. So that worked in our favour. This weekend, Bournemouth play Liverpool. So this is a good opportunity for us to push on up, to get a win, and to pick up the morale, to pick up the momentum, because I keep saying this word momentum, but it's true. It's true. I don't buy that these players aren't good enough. There was a time where I looked at this and I was like, the players aren't good enough. Now I look at this and I'm like, no, we've seen the players perform well. In fact, 90% of this squad was the same squad as last year. So as much as that was 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, they have had a season playing together. The biggest challenge is that we can't seem to get consistency in our midfield, and the only thing that's consistent about the team is our back line. So you can't make changes to your keeper, you can't make changes to the back, because you've got all this going on at the front. So when people criticize Frank and say, look, we're conceding late goals, we can't, unless he's going to bring on Danso late in the game to shore things up, I don't think he can make any changes to this back line in this game, for me personally. So look, that is a very, very big issue. Romero needs to not get a yellow card in this game. I don't know how many he's on at the moment. Is he on about 8? Is Romero on about 8 yellows? I'm not sure. I think he's on a lot of yellows. How many yellows is he on? Yeah, he's on 8 yellow cards, Romero. So if you're going to get a yellow, maybe get it in this game, but then you risk suspension and a really, really hard run up that we have. So I hope that we don't let our frustration run away with us in this game. We need to keep a calm head. We need to stay on top. We need to dominate this game. We need to bring the game to them. No sitting back on our laurels. And look, we know that we play better away from home than we do at home. We play better. We've got better form this season playing away from home. Whether that is due to the atmosphere, whether it is due to the stadium, I actually think it's quite lucky that this game is away from home because it keeps the fans away for another week until we play Man City and the stadium starts erupting again. So I think this is going to give the players a bit of headspace because the fans that tend to go to the away games, they do back the team. You can hear them through the TV. It's a long journey up to Burnley. It's not round the corner for those people that are travelling from London. So I think you're going to get maybe really, really committed fans who are going to this game. And typically when you see that happen, they're going to be the ones who are going to be backing the team and cheering them on. So I'm hoping for a good atmosphere. In terms of the starting lineup, in terms of the score prediction, I don't know if I want to call this one. I am going to go for a Spurs win. Every time I predict a Spurs win, it doesn't pull off. And that's because of this rotation that we're in. I was conservative last game because I was scared we were going to lose that game. But we cannot be scared. We cannot fear this. We have to hit this head on. We have to go out there and show Burnley what we are made of. We need to show the players need to prove to the fans that they are on side with Frank. Frank needs to show us with his tactics that he can play that style of football. And I don't know if he goes out in this game and we go all guns blazing and Sarr is having the game of his life and we end up losing it, if fans will come on side and if they'll really go, well, actually, the game was pretty good, but we still lost it. I don't think that is going to wash this time, unfortunately. And as much as the context of the Premier League and all of these draws and set pieces having an effect, I think this season is, I'm telling you, this season is going to be this season is good. Other than Arsenal, this season is going to be super, super tight. I think it's even going to come down to the last day, if I'm completely honest, in terms of looking at the table in full. But I am going to back us for a win. I am going to back us for a 1-0. And I would love to see Tell score in this game. We know that Tell wants to get back into the starting lineup. We know that Tell wants to get into that Champions League squad, but he's not good enough. I'm sorry, Tell. I'm sorry. And I know people are frustrated about the fact that you're not in the squad, but you need to show us more. You need to show us more. Get yourself a goal in this game. And you know what? Make it without a doubt that you are going into the Champions League squad come after the Frankfurt game. There's an opportunity window here for Tell to prove himself to the fans, to the manager, to not be dropped. Okay, the reason why he's being dropped is because he's not good enough. And I'm not saying Mawani is better. He brings something different. I do think Tell is better than Mawani, but you've got to prove it on the pitch. And Tell, you didn't play midweek. You are going to be the freshest guy on the pitch. And I want to see you do something magical in this game. And I believe that you have it. I believe that he has the skill to be able to do it. It's just whether the pressure around this game and the general feeling around this game from inside the dressing room is going to be one of fight to push forward and fight for the manager. What do you guys think? Are you optimistic about this game? Am I delusional like always? But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think the lineup's going to be? What do you think the result's going to be? Are you excited? I was going to look at doing a live, but I've got some things going on tomorrow and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fit it in. So I've opened this community tab. I'm probably going to do like some kind of poll or some kind of question on there so that you guys can jump on and let me know maybe when the best time is to go live that suits you guys. So I'll see you all in the next video. Up the Spurs and enjoy the game.